Ladies and gentlemen, this is MTG Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is June 28th of our Devastation preview season. We are over halfway through preview coverage for Amonkhet 2 Judgment Day. But before I get into the video, make sure to hit the like button down there. It helps us out a lot and lets us know that you like the content we're producing. So without further ado, let's get right on to the previews today. Commons and uncommons first, of course. Razaketh's Ritual is 3 colorless and 2 black mana for sorcery. Search your library for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. You can also cycle for 1 black mana. I really love this card. While tutoring for 5 may seem excessive, having cycling on this card makes it clear what deck it should be in Standard. New Perspectives. This is exactly on curve for New Perspectives. You can either search out that, Approach of the Second Sun, a different win condition, or perhaps a board stall piece to give yourself an extra turn. Don't need any of that? No problem, just cycle it away for 1 mana. Not only is this amazing for that deck, but in Draft and Sealed, this card is equally great. Getting to 5 mana there isn't too terrible. And because this is an uncommon, you'll see it more often than you think. Not to mention, again, cycling for 1 black mana. Meaning if you don't need it, just pay the 1 mana and cycle it away. It's so beautifully simple. I love it. Ominous Sphinx is 3 colorless and 2 blue mana for 4/4 Sphinx with flying. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, target creature and opponent's controls gets -2 until end of turn. This is a fantastic limited bomb. Decreasing attack power while on the swing or defense makes this extremely useful. For Standard though, this card is too much for too little, sadly. It's no Archfiend of Ifnir, that's for sure. But it may make its way into a Tribal Sphinx deck, who knows. Consign is 1 colorless and 1 blue mana for an instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. It also has Aftermath for Oblivion for 4 colorless and 1 black mana. Target opponent discards 2 cards. This card is decent limited removal and tempo gain. In the early game, you can bounce an important play or kill a token, and in the late game, you can stagger your opponent's turn by making them discard 2 cards. By turn 5 or 6, this is a devastating play. Limited All-Star. It's basically extreme removal. For Standard, however, again, this card is just too much for too little. If Oblivion was maybe 4 mana, I feel like it may get used somewhere, but because it's so pricey, I doubt it. Vizier of the Anointed is 3 colorless and 1 blue mana for a 2/4 human cleric. When Vizier of the Anointed enters the battlefield, search your library for a card with Embalm or Eternalize, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Whenever you Eternalize or Embalm, draw a card. This card is decent in Draft and Sealed if you play into several Embalm and Eternalize creatures. However, it's one of those creatures that isn't too useful by itself, meaning it's not a high draft pick early enough, so drafting into it when you know you have several useful creatures might be difficult. I still like it regardless though. Just a bit of extra value if you can predict your deck. In Standard though, this card is terrible. Hour of Eternity is XX and 3 blue for a sorcery. Exile X target creature cards from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. Ouch! This card is super pricey. For 7 mana, you can exile 2 creatures and get 2 4/4s. I think that's fine for Draft and Limited, and only if you have the mana, of course. But for Standard, this card is terribad. The only way it could see play is if you built a kitchen table Anointed Procession deck around this. Not my favorite idea. But for EDH though, this card is great. Hazoret's Undying Fury is 4 colorless and 2 red mana for a sorcery. Shuffle your library, then exile the top 4 cards. You may cast any number of non-land cards with converted mana cost 5 or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. Okay, let's unpack this. The shuffle effect makes setting up your deck for this impossible, but that doesn't mean this card is terrible. 5 converted mana cost is a lot, and will likely hit most of everything in your deck. This could be an insanely good finisher if you know what else is in your deck in Draft or Sealed. For Standard, while spinning the wheel is something players like to do, looking at you, it works Marvel, it only grabs cards with converted mana cost 5 or lower, not just anything. So it makes it not as good. But being able to basically collect company in red is super interesting, especially when, on average, red has fewer lands in their aggro decks. I think this might be played around with in Standard simply for that fact, though 6 mana is a lot, and turning off your mana on turn 7 could be vital. I, however, remain optimistic. The last card for today is Kefnet's Last Word. It's 2 colorless and 2 blue mana for a sorcery. Gain control of target artifact, creature, or enchantment. And again, lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. This is a Draft and Sealed bomb for sure. But let's think about Standard. Does this have the viability for a Standard deck? I'm going to say because it's blue and because the drawback is tapped lands? No, sadly not. But do you know where this card will shine? EDH. For 4 mana on turn 17 in a 4-player commander deck, this sounds ridiculous. And I can't wait to use it that way. But for anything else, it can win you the game in some draft and sealed events. But for standard, it just has too many workarounds for this card to make it unplayable. And that is it for today's spoilers. Not too many, but we're nearing the end. What did you think of the cards spoiled today? Hazoret's Undying Fury seems like a weird workaround card that might actually see standard play. A fairly costly collected company, I'd say. Disagree with any of my opinions? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always down for conversation. As always, subscribe to MTGO Traders for more news, gameplay videos, and deck techs that you can shake a God Pharaoh at. I'll see you guys tomorrow.